Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Thank you for coming to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about gambling and conquering risk. That's right. And I'm going to hit you with some risk management. Guys, I told you that when it was pertinent, I would pull out the old college diploma and explain some things to you. Now, these things, guys, these topics come up. I'm telling you that this case is so rich in content. I'm up to 57 videos now. There's a playlist, by the way, you guys can go listen to if you wanted to. And there's always other things to talk about. Now, Les brought up an analogy yesterday. What had to do with the martingale strategy for betting. Now, those of you that haven't been around for the channel for that long, especially when it comes to this case, but if you have, you know that I've been a fan of sports betting for the longest time. Not now that I'm married, okay? But in my prior bachelor life, Vegas and sports betting was a really big part of my life. Absolutely it was. And let me tell you, one of the best things that I learned from that experience is assessing risk, right? Assessing risk. And this is even pre-college, right? And I'll go over some things here. But it was very interesting to hear what Luss had to say as a lawyer. Now, I'm gonna give you my perspective. Now, let me start off by saying this is not legal advice of any kind, or financial advice, by the way. You're just listening to some YouTuber talk on the internet for entertainment. If you need professional help, seek it, or you're gonna end up like Karl Jobst. You're gonna be like it's gonna be like Billy Mitchell. Sitting at the table. What was it, Kenny Rodgers? You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. Billy didn't count his money. When he was sitting at the courtroom, he has time enough to count it. Now that Karl is done. Hit you with some Kenny Rodgers in the morning, baby. All right. Before we continue, let's hear from King Billy. I see a lot of YouTubers threatening defamation lawsuits lately. Is lawsuit clout the new internet meta? And I wrote, YouTubers, remember, you are not King Billy. Karl bankrupt. Now remember, this is all from our unofficial sponsor, Ricky Sauce. 10% off when you use the code bankrupt. Now, we're all waiting for the future video and Karl Jobst will detail the gravity of his own destruction. Once again, guys, let's talk about this. So, in business, in risk assessment specifically, now law is not my field of expertise, but risk assessment is. So, I'm going to use my 5th grade education and my ESL language here to give you what we do before we call lawyers. Okay? Now, going back to the martingale strategy, let me tell you, for those of you out there, please don't fall prey to this because it makes assumptions that aren't unrealistic for most people. Right? Number one, it relies that you have unlimited capital, which is not something everybody has. It doesn't matter how rich you are. Right? You have a limited amount of capital. You can run out of money. A belief in eventual victory, right? Just you can't be doubling down and chasing, which basically this system is, right? But because even if you're flipping a coin, imagine that your bets are flipping a coin, and that's what you're betting on, and you're gonna take 100 bets, right? We'll use that as the sample size. Well, after 100, it's gonna be about 50-50, right? Most of the time, it's either heads or tails. But within those runs, you're going to have 10 runs of losing 10 times or winning 7 times. Well, when you go on that 10-time run where you're doubling down, that's what makes you go bankrupt. You don't have unlimited funds to make that work for you, right? And the idea that if just escalating risk over time is eventually going to pay off is a real mistake, right? And this is where, he translates the escalating legal cost by Karl Jobst, to his exposure, right? And in the hope of getting vindication or a big settlement win, neither of which happened. Now, let me tell you, when we are doing risk assessment for a client, right? If you called me and said, oh, I got sued and I think that I'm going to win, I'm pretty sure, right? And then I have to have a come to Jesus meeting with them and then show them what's up, right? Show them what realistically we look at, right? When you're looking at a case, you have a 33% of winning, you 33% of settling, and 33% of losing, right? So you would say it's 1 out of 3. No, not at all. When you call us, right? When you call me and say I got sued, you already lost, right? The reason you're calling me is because you're trying to assess risk and to see how much liability you want to take on after the initial loss. You want me to mitigate that, right? You want me to give you a strategy or my opinion, right? My professional opinion on what your case looks like and what are your odds, basically, right? And trust me, guys, people know more than experts, right? To a T. Every time I do this presentation, 70% of the clients still go ahead. They don't settle, right? Because the way we look at it, you only have a 1 in 3 chance of winning, which really means losing less. Because if the plaintiff wins, you lose. If you settle, the plaintiff wants something, right? So now you lost, whatever your settlement was, plus your legal fees. Right? This is why most ambulance chasers make so much money, right? Because in their cases, just imagine flipping a coin that you had 66% chance of winning every time. That's what they're looking at. Most of the time they settle, right, with these companies. And the companies are on the other side like me going, wait a minute, what's the best outcome? We should probably settle. That's the least amount of losing that we can do. We already lost, right? So if Karl was really looking at it from a professional level, guys, and this is the advantage of college, right? People think that college degrees don't mean anything, and I'm not just saying it just for the college degree, right? Any profession. You could be an electrician, you could be cutting hair, you could be a plumber. It doesn't matter. If you dedicate yourself to expertise and you combine that with experience, you're going to be successful. Those are just the odds. So if Karl would have gotten, right, and he had an infrastructure of education and maybe a team and had a real company, then he could have hired somebody like me and had this conversation and say, Karl, you see this Pac-Man right here? That's Billy Mitchell. And he's going to eat you up if you continue with this lawsuit. That would have been my recommendation back then, just based on the odds. Forget about the case. This is why you settle, right? Especially because I'm looking at it from this perspective, okay? His lawyers know that they're taking on a high-profile client. No lawyer in his right mind is going to take something that he knows is going to be in the paper, that's a very weak case, and then he's going to put his name on it like the lawyer that lost this case. Because on the other hand, if you win with Billy Mitchell, that's great for your firm. That's free advertising forever, right? Just think about it right now. If you're going to sue anybody in Australia, who are you calling? Are you calling Karl Jobst lawyers? Or are you calling Billy Mitchell's lawyers? Free advertising forever, right? So those are the things that we look at, because before you even call a lawyer, again, law is not my expertise. My expertise is, business. And before in business we call a lawyer, we use what's called Bayesian decision theory or expected value, things that you also use in gambling, by the way. Now, if you're interested in knowing your odds, right? I'm not gonna do a series on that. It's not that kind of channel. But if that's your interest, this is the best book, right? I'm telling you, the best book. This book is written by a lawyer, right? It's called Risk, Attacking Vegas and Wall Street. And it's by Elihu D. Fustel. And let me tell you, this guy is a gambler that was a lawyer that knows his math. And this book is absolutely great, right? If you want to understand, even if you don't want to, participate in gambling or anything like that, right, for fun or what have you, remember the house always has the upper hand. right? Even when it comes to sports betting, you have to be 52, I think it's 52.8%. I can't even remember, right? But just a little bit over 50%, more than 51%, winning, because remember the house takes 110, so they always have a vig, and then every single slot, the odds aren't against you, right? Are against you. The only place where you can have some sort of advantage over the house is blackjack, and as soon as they know that you're doing statistics at the table, or counting cards, as some people call it, they'll ask you out. It's not illegal, by the way. It's not illegal. It's just frowned upon, right? It's frowned upon. Math can't be illegal. You're just playing the odds, because there's so many cards and most of them are tens, And especially if you go with a group of friends in a table, you could really take it to them, just for a night. But they'll figure it out eventually, because their systems of countermeasures, guys, are elite. Let me tell you, and they'll get you right out of there. And it doesn't matter how much you're betting, right? You can get 86 out of casino for winning $200 if you're doing it the right way, right? So, guys, those are my thoughts on it, right? I can't tell you anything about the law, but I can tell you a lot about risk. And when it comes to lawsuits and you being on the ends of lawsuits, it's always a losing proposition for you. Remember, you are not King Billy. You need to assess your risk, right? You need to know your limitations, right? You got to know when to hold them, and you got to know when to run. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps. Share the video. As you know, YouTube is not being friendly to me right now. They are not. So please, do what you can and help. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.